The Forest of Secrets short story. The morning sky was clear when Ethan left the small village. He had packed only a bottle of water, some bread, a flashlight, and a map. Everyone said the old forest was peaceful, but they also warned him not to leave the main path. Ethan smiled, thanked them for the advice, and continued walking. He wasn't looking for treasure or adventure. He only wanted a quiet day away from the busy town. The air was cool, and birds sang from the tops of the trees. Sunlight shone through the leaves, making the forest feel warm and welcoming. Ethan took a deep breath and smiled. Everything was calm. After about an hour, he noticed something unusual. A small drone began to hover above the trees. It stayed in the same place for several seconds before slowly moving deeper into the forest. Hover? It's a verb. Hover means to stay in one place in the air without moving much. When something hovers, it remains in the same position instead of flying away. For example, a helicopter hovered above the city. The drone hovered over the forest. That's strange, Ethan whispered. Curious, he decided to follow it. The path became narrower and the trees grew thicker. Soon he reached a small river. The water wasn't very deep, but it was moving much faster than he expected. As he looked for a safe place to cross, he heard someone shouting, "Help!" Without thinking, Ethan ran toward the voice. A young man had slipped from a rock and fallen into the river. The strong current was pulling him away. He couldn't swim well, and it looked like he might drown. Drown, drone, it's a verb. Drown means to die because you cannot breathe underwater. When someone drowns, they stay underwater for too long and cannot breathe. For example, the child almost drowned in the lake. Always be careful when swimming in deep water. Ethan quickly looked around and grabbed a long tree branch from the ground. It's a verb. Grab means to take or hold something quickly. People usually grab something when they need it immediately or are in a hurry. For example, she grabbed her phone before leaving. "Grab a chair and sit with us." "Take it," he shouted. The young man reached for the branch, but the water pushed him farther away. Ethan stretched as far as he could, almost falling into the river himself. Finally, the man's hand caught the branch. Ethan pulled with all his strength. Little by little, the man moved closer until he reached the riverbank. Both of them fell onto the grass, breathing heavily. "Thank you," the stranger said between deep breaths. "I thought I was finished." "You'll be all right," Ethan replied with a tired grin. Grin, it's a noun and a verb. Grin means a wide smile. When you grin, you smile broadly because you are happy, excited, or amused. For example, she gave me a big grin. He grinned after hearing the good news. "My name's Liam." Ethan. After resting for a few minutes, they decided to continue together. Walking with another person felt safer than walking alone. Not long afterward, they heard loud voices ahead. They carefully walked toward the sound and stopped behind a group of bushes. Two men were having a violent brawl beside an old wooden bridge. One of them was holding a backpack while the other kept trying to pull it away. Brawl, brawl. It's a noun and a verb. Brawl means a noisy, violent fight involving several people. When people brawl, they fight loudly and physically. For example, a brawl broke out after the game. Two men began to brawl in the street. "We should stay out of this," Liam whispered. Ethan slowly nodded. The fight ended when one man suddenly shoved the other into the mud. The man with the backpack quickly ran away, disappearing among the trees. Shove. It's a verb. Shove means to push someone or something with force. A shove is usually stronger than a normal push. For example, someone shoved me in the crowd. He shoved the heavy box across the floor. The other man stood up, covered in dirt, and angrily punched the bridge's wooden railing. Punch, punch. It's a noun and a verb. Punch means to hit someone or something with your fist. A punch is also the hit itself. For example, he punched the wall in anger. She threw a punch during the fight. "I don't think we should let him see us," Ethan said quietly. They turned around and walked in the opposite direction. The forest seemed different now. It no longer felt peaceful. Every strange sound made them stop and listen. After another half hour, the path suddenly split into two smaller trails. Split, split. It's a verb. Split means to divide something into two or more parts. People can also split up, which means to separate and go in different directions. For example, let's split the cake into 4 pieces. The group split up to search for help. There wasn't anything like this on my map, Ethan said. Liam looked at the ground. The footprints mostly go left. But the drone went right, Ethan replied. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, Ethan said, "Let's stay together. I don't want us to split up." Split up? It's a phrasal verb. Split up means to separate and go in different directions. When people split up, they stop staying together and each person goes a different way. For example, the friends split up to look for the lost dog. We decided not to split up in the dark forest. Liam agreed immediately. They chose the trail on the right. As they continued walking, the ground became steeper. Wet leaves covered the rocks, making every step dangerous. Without warning, Liam's foot slipped. He slid several meters down the hill before crashing into a fallen tree. Slid. It's a verb. Slid is the past tense of slide. Slid means moved smoothly across a surface. For example, the book slid off the table. He slid down the snowy hill. Liam! Ethan carefully made his way down the slope. "Are you hurt?" "My leg," Liam said with a painful grunt. "It really aches." Grunt, grunt. It's a noun and a verb. Grunt means to make a short, low sound, usually because of pain or hard work. People often grunt when they lift something heavy or get hurt. For example, he let out a grunt as he lifted the box. She grunted in pain after falling. Ache, ache. It's a noun and a verb. Ache means to have a continuous dull pain. An ache is usually not a sharp pain. It often lasts for some time. For example, my back aches after sitting all day. She had a terrible headache and her whole body ached. Ethan helped him stand. "I don't think it's broken. I hope not." They rested while Liam caught his breath. Just then they heard a strange noise. Ding, ding, ding. It sounded like an old ring from a bell somewhere deep in the forest. Ring, ring. It's a verb. Ring means to make the sound of a bell, phone, or alarm. When something rings, it makes a clear, repeated sound. For example, the phone rang during dinner. I heard the church bells ring. "Do you hear that?" Liam asked. Ethan nodded. "It must signify something. Maybe there's a church, or maybe someone lives nearby." Signify? It's a verb. Signify means to mean or represent something. If something signifies something else, it gives you information or has a special meaning. For example, a red light signifies danger. His smile signified that everything was okay. The sound stopped as suddenly as it had started. They looked at each other before continuing toward where they thought the sound had come from. After nearly 20 minutes, they reached a narrow wooden gate hidden behind thick vines. Beyond it stood a small cabin. "It doesn't look abandoned," Liam whispered. Ethan slowly stepped into the yard. Step into. It's a phrasal verb. Step into means to enter a place by taking a step. It can also mean to take on a new role or responsibility. For example, she stepped into the room quietly. He stepped into his new job with confidence. The grass had been cut recently. Someone had been here. Before they could knock, the cabin door slowly opened by itself. No one stood inside. Only silence. Liam looked nervous. "We should leave." But Ethan couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious bell. He gently pushed the door wider and looked around. The room was simple. A table, 2 chairs, a fireplace, several old books covered in dust. Then he noticed something on the wall, a large map. It showed every path through the forest, including one that wasn't on his own map. "Look at this." Liam walked over. "If this map is correct, there's another road leading out." Ethan carefully tried to gauge the distance with his finger. Gauge. It's a verb. Gauge means to judge, estimate, or measure something. When you gauge something, you try to understand it without knowing the exact answer. For example, she gauged the distance before jumping. It's hard to gauge how people will react. Distance. It's a noun. Distance means the amount of space between 2 places or things. You can measure distance in meters, kilometers, miles, or other units. For example, the The distance between the two towns is 20 kilometers. We walked a long distance to reach the village. If we follow this path, we might reach the main road before sunset. Just as they were about to leave, a loud crash came from outside. Both men jumped. Their reflex made them turn toward the window at exactly the same time. It's a noun. Reflex means a quick, automatic reaction that happens without thinking. A reflex helps your body react immediately to something. For example, catching the falling cup was just a reflex. The doctor checked his knee reflex. Several dark figures were moving between the trees. "Someone's coming," Liam whispered. The figures were getting closer. Ethan quickly grabbed the map from the wall. Grab, it's a verb. Grab means to take or hold something quickly. People usually grab something when they need it immediately or are in a hurry. For example, grab your coat before we leave. She grabbed the keys from the table. "Come on!" They rushed out through the back door. Branches scratched their arms as they ran. Behind them, angry voices echoed through the forest. They didn't know who those people were. They only knew one thing. If they stopped now, they might never find their way home. The voices behind them grew louder. "Over there!" They went this way. Ethan didn't dare look back. He and Liam pushed through thick bushes, trying to stay out of sight. Their hearts were racing and sweat covered their faces despite the cool afternoon air. Sweat. Sweat. It's a noun and a verb. Sweat means the drops of water that come out of your skin when you're hot, exercising, or feeling nervous. When you sweat, your body cools itself down. For example, I started to sweat after running. His hands were covered in sweat because he was nervous. "We can't keep running forever," Liam whispered. "I know," Ethan replied, "but we have to lose them first." They hurried down a narrow trail until they reached a steep hillside. The ground was covered with loose stones and dry leaves. "Be careful," Ethan warned. The warning came too late. Both of them began to slide down the slope. Ethan tried to stop himself by holding onto a tree root, but it snapped. They continued sliding until they landed at the bottom with a cloud of dust. Slide, slade. It's a verb. Slide means to move smoothly across a surface. Things often slide on ice, snow, or wet ground. For example, the children love to slide down the playground slide. Be careful not to slide on the wet floor. Liam laughed softly. "I guess walking would have been easier." Ethan couldn't help smiling. "At least we're still in one piece." The voices had disappeared. For the first time in several minutes, the forest was quiet again. They walked until they found a small clearing. In the middle stood an old stone well. "I don't think anyone has used this in years," Liam said. Ethan looked around carefully, trying to distinguish every sound. The wind moved the branches. Birds sang high above them. Nothing else. Distinguish. It's a verb. Distinguish means to recognize the difference between people or things. When you distinguish something, you notice what makes it different. For example, it's hard to distinguish the twins because they look alike. Can you distinguish the real painting from the copy? "I think we're safe for now." They sat beside the well and shared the last pieces of bread. "I never expected my peaceful walk to turn into this," Ethan said. Liam smiled. "Neither did I." After a short rest, they followed the map they had taken from the cabin. The path became easier to walk, and hope slowly began to rise inside them. It's a verb. Rise means to move upward or increase. Things like the sun, prices, and hope can all rise. For example, the sun rises every morning. Prices continue to rise every year. "If this map is right," Ethan said, "we should reach the old bridge before sunset." They walked for another hour before hearing water again. This time it wasn't a river. It was a wide waterfall. The sound filled the valley. "There has to be a way around it," Liam said. As they searched, Ethan noticed several long ropes hanging from a large tree. "Someone put these here." He carefully pulled one. "It still feels strong." They decided to use the rope to climb down the rocks beside the waterfall. Halfway down, Liam lost his footing. He slipped, but Ethan's quick reflex allowed him to catch the rope before falling. "I've got you!" Ethan shouted. Liam held on tightly. Slowly, they climbed the rest of the way down. When both of them reached the ground, Liam let out a long breath. You've saved me twice today. Let's hope there isn't a third time. The two friends continued walking until they reached an old wooden cart lying on its side. A heavy tree had fallen across the path. We'll never get past this, Liam said. Ethan examined the tree. If we work together, we might be able to drag some of these branches away. It's a verb. Drag means to pull something along the ground with effort. When you drag something, you move it by pulling it behind you. For example, he dragged the heavy suitcase across the floor. They dragged the table to the other side of the room. For nearly 20 minutes they pulled, lifted and pushed. Their clothes became dirty and they were completely covered in sweat. Finally, the path was clear. That was harder than I expected, Liam said with a tired grin. As the sun began to set, the forest suddenly became noisy. Hundreds of birds flew into the sky at once. Then came the buzzing. A swarm of bees burst out from a hollow tree nearby. Swarm, it's a noun and a verb. Swarm means a large group of insects or animals moving together. It is often used for bees, but it can also describe large groups of people. For example, a swarm of bees flew out of the tree. Fans swarmed around the singer. Run, Ethan shouted. The two friends sprinted down the trail. They didn't stop until the buzzing had completely faded. Liam bent over trying to catch his breath. I never want to see that many bees again. Ethan laughed. I agree. The laughter quickly disappeared when they noticed fresh footprints on the ground. Disappear. It's a verb. Disappear means to go out of sight or stop being seen. When something disappears, you can no longer see it. For example, the sun disappeared behind the clouds. My keys disappeared and I couldn't find them. Someone had been walking ahead of them. The footprints led toward a large iron gate standing between two ancient stone walls. The gate was open. Beyond it stood a beautiful garden that seemed completely untouched by time. In the middle of the garden stood an elderly woman. She smiled as if she had been expecting them. You've had quite a journey, she said calmly. Ethan and Liam looked at each other in surprise. Who are you? Ethan asked. I've been watching this forest for many years. She looked at the map in Ethan's hand. I see you found the old cabin. You know about it? Liam asked. Of course. She walked closer. The men chasing you wanted that map because it leads to something valuable. Ethan frowned. We don't want treasure. I know, the woman replied. That's exactly why you were able to find it. She pointed toward a narrow stone path. Follow that road and you'll reach the village before nightfall. Ethan looked at Liam. After everything that had happened, trusting another stranger felt difficult. Still, something about the woman's peaceful smile made him feel calm. He had to muster all his courage to ask one final question. Muster verb. Muster means to gather courage, strength, or confidence to do something difficult. When you muster something, you collect enough of it to face a challenge. For example, she mustered the courage to speak in front of the crowd. He mustered all his energy to finish the race. Why did those men want the map so badly? The woman smiled but didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the dark forest behind them. They believed it would lead them to gold. She paused. But the real treasure hidden in this forest isn't money. What is it? She smiled again. A chance to discover who you become when you're afraid. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then she stepped aside and pointed toward the stone path. As Ethan and Liam walked through the gate, they turned around one last time. The woman was gone. She had completely disappeared. Only the evening wind moved through the quiet garden. Neither of them said a word. Some mysteries, they realized, were never meant to be explained.